not sure that AI can do that just yet. Maybe one day, and perhaps when it does, then I may need to go and find another job. Oh, and of course, humour.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. I'm alleged to say that mine isn't actually that good, I'm told. But it doesn't stop me trying. She said, still remember to this day, if I have 10 delegates, she said, in a training room, and 9 are engaged and 1 isn't, that's not that delegate's fault.
Hello and welcome to the VFM Podcast. I'm here today with Peter Joy and we're going to be discussing what makes successful training. So welcome, Peter. Thank you for joining us. I suppose my first question is, what does successful training look like? How do we measure success?
Well, good morning, Adam. Thank you. I think the short answer to that would be for things to be different.
Okay.
I think then perhaps a deeper look at that would be really going back to the beginning of the journey, and I often talk about training as a journey in relation to competence development. So I think a nice way to look at this would be fundamentally is going back to the very, very beginning. And now this is going to sound maybe a little bit cold, and we're taking the human aspect out of it, but I will often say that what would we want this role to deliver?
Okay.
And we talk about the role specifically. And then once we understand what that role needs to deliver, which is quite often built on the strategic objectives of the business or the department or where it's heading. But once we understand that, we can actually then start to put a suitable and sufficient, perhaps, job description together. What sort of things should this role be delivering? Once we've done that, we can then really start to build on what sort of things should this person be able to do? What should they know? And perhaps what sort of attitude should they have towards the business? Understanding that training is fundamentally around competence development. So once we have that list of competencies that we're happy that are suitable and sufficient to deliver the expectations of the role, then it's helpful to really start to have a good way to perhaps measure where the role holder is in relation to delivering those competencies.
Right.
Now, that can be, some people will call those appraisals, reviews, assessments, or it could even be an informal conversation with your line manager. Then it's really agreeing, and I think that has to be, based on all this is supporting success, it then has to be a professional conversation around, ultimately, where that person is in relation to achieving these competencies and agree comfortably that actually, yes, there are perhaps some development needs in certain areas. I think then in that critical review phase, it's fundamentally important for the line manager, and we should never underestimate the importance of the line manager's responsibility here to be able to communicate effectively the benefit of perhaps the role holder having these competencies, but fundamentally what it will mean to them in their ability to then perform in the organisation, what it will deliver to themselves, and ultimately what it will deliver to the organisation and ultimately customers. Yeah. And that is so often missed. Okay. And I'll just pause there for a minute, because quite often what happens is we have a high proportion of people attending training courses that maybe haven't really had the benefit of that conversation, so they don't have that deeper level of context to allow them to enter the training with the best of spirit, shall we say. So if we have done that, hopefully then they attend some training, which I hope is half decent, as I often say. It normally is. And what we'll do then is we'll take the delegate through the learning outcomes, and ensuring that the training is tailored to the specific needs of the delegate or delegates in relation to the competencies that are needed to be fundamentally delivered. Okay. So a delegate would attend the training course, whether it be half a day, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, it doesn't matter. They attend the training. Now, the critical piece for me, what really supports success in training, is then when the delegate returns to work, that they have some time put aside with their line manager to actually discuss the training, what was learnt, what perhaps was missing, how the delegate felt towards that training. And in change management, at that point, critically, that is when the delegate may need some assistance then to carry that journey forward. So they've had the context in the workplace, they've attended the training, That for me, that's the middle piece. And then the third piece fundamentally is actually the conversation in the workplace with the line manager around, okay, what did you learn? What might be different? What gaps have you noticed? What support do you need? And deciding what that support is, and then that could be, it could be coaching, it could be mentoring, it could be anything. That's really for the individuals to decide. But what is critical is helping that person, encouraging them, supporting them to actually then start to use the training.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally, we mentioned change, and change is nothing more than changing a habit. Well,
yeah.
I've not met many people in my career who can change habits very quickly.
Yes.
So for me, that's a critical stalling point. And if we capture that and put the right level of support in place, that then allows the colleague, shall we say, to actually start to do some things differently.
Okay. Yeah. So it's quite a big journey in a way. I think from what you're saying is like when we might think of training, we might think a day or two. Learning whatever it is. But in fact, it's much wider than that if we want to see success in training and actually see a change and some change in result. We have to start right back at basics, maybe identify a competency gap or maybe something like we'd like to have, someone to have. Then it's the training itself, but then it's the after sort of follow-up to that training to make sure things actually delivered. That's what I'm hearing from you. It's actually a much longer process than just saying, okay, you're off on this course, see you next week.
Yeah. And I think that's absolutely right. For me, there's a couple of things to look at there. It is fundamentally about foundations, and certainly when I'm delivering training, I will often talk about solid foundations, and we all are comfortable with the analogy.
Yeah.
If you build a house on sand, it's
Yes.
likely not to stand up for very long. It will fall over at some point. And training is no different.
Yeah.
Change management is no different. And fundamentally, training is really connected to change management. You're asking and encouraging a person to be different.
Yes.
And there are things that have to be in place. So yes, for me, it's really understanding where we are at the beginning. And I cannot stress the importance of understanding what we want that role to deliver.
Yeah.
Have some very suitable, sufficient, fair, balanced metrics in place. And some of those will be perhaps more quantitative and some more qualitative. But it's fundamentally then having to be able to sit down with a line manager, looking, as I would often say, looking somebody in the eyes and having a very professional conversation around what's working really well and perhaps where the gaps are. But connecting those gaps to performance, creating meaning for the individual to then attend some training. Yeah. And then fundamentally supporting that back in the workplace. So yes, it is a journey, but it's a journey well worth taking.
I think the word you used there, meaning, I think is very important, because I think sometimes we think of training, it'd be nice to do that, or you do a bit of training and we've invested in our people and that's good, we can tick a box. But actually, if there's no meaning behind that, meaning for both the organisation, which I think has to want to see a result from this, but also for the individual. And the individual has to, I think, understand what the point of them being there is and why they're going on the training, because otherwise it's just another box ticking exercise, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think when we start to stepping into the world of motivation, which is a different subject to today's topic, but we will know, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are two very different things, very closely linked, yes, very complicated, lots of theories out there, but fundamentally it's about creating, for me, meaning. And I'll always tap my heart on training when I'm doing this, that actually how a person feels. And if you allow a person, perhaps encourage them to be able to perform, whatever that is, to the organisation, to higher levels, to contribute more to the community, then invariably for most people that will create a greater level of satisfaction through their ability to perform. So fundamentally, training is about, for me, helping people perform to higher and agreed levels so they can look back at themselves and think, I've done all right there. I've done well. And in fairness, we all, whilst it's not about egos, I think we all enjoy that feeling of looking at something and think, I've done all right there. I've done well.
That's good. When it comes to the training itself, so on a training course, what sort of factors there influence success of a training? I suppose what makes it good training, I guess, for the delegates, maybe also for you as a trainer. So I'm sure some courses are better than others. So what factors around there help?
I think fundamentally, that's a very good question, and I think it's a very deep question, and one perhaps not be able to answer too easily. But I think for me, it's a balance of many, many things. Fundamentally, a course of, shall we say, 12 delegates. Let's just say, for example, it's a 2-day course.
Yeah.
Every one of those delegates will have maybe different learning needs. They will have different ways of absorbing information. And I think it is my job or our job as trainers, facilitators, coaches, mentors, whatever you want to call us, when we'll wear many hats during a training session. It's understanding. It's what those delegates need from me. I often reflect back to a lady called Lisa, who trained me many years ago, and she said, still remember to this day, if I have 10 delegates, she said, in a training room, and 9 are engaged and 1 isn't, that's not that delegate's fault.
Okay.
If it is about fault, that's my job as a trainer to connect with that person in perhaps a different way, a way that they need to get the best out of that training. So for me, training, it's very much around trying our best to connect with delegates in many different ways, hence why we will have many, many activities. We will tell many, many stories, anecdotal stories, contextually aligned with the material. We'll use the occasional PowerPoint slide.
Yeah.
We'll use many, many, many flip chart drawings, draw live and connect. We'll coach, we'll mentor, we'll use many different techniques to connect with the delegates in as many ways as we possibly can in relation to the topics that we're trying to bring in. Oh, and of course, humour.
And you, of course,
yes. I'm alleged to say that mine isn't actually that good, I'm told. But it doesn't stop me trying. So I think, as a trainer, if you said what makes that successful, I think it's a blended approach. It's very much trying to remember that you've got different people in the room with different experiences, some of which you'll never be aware of, and perhaps nor should you be, but catering for everyone's needs. I often talk in leadership programs around servant leadership, and fundamentally that as a leader, I am there to serve my employees. Yeah. And if my employees, the people that I work with and for, are successful, then by definition, as a leader, I am successful. Yes. I will use the same analogy with managers. If a manager has the mindset of making their team successful, then by definition, the manager has been successful. And I think it's no different for trainers. Okay. I think if we can set, to the best of our ability, with all our experience, an environment that allows people to feel safe, psychologically safe, which is something that I'm very, very focused on, relaxed, whilst threading some very, very important business messages in. If I can do everything I can to make delegates successful, then I'm successful. I like to think. I like to think. Yeah. Sometimes I'll never know.
Yeah,
I have
of course.
I have to leave. We leave as trainers at the end of every day training. Could I have reasonably done any more to make this program more successful or this course more successful? And I think if we look ourselves in the mirror and say, yes, I could, then I think we need to own that, take responsibility for that, and make corrections the next time we deliver. Because I think we are all constantly, continually learning. Yeah,
I think it's very important that you mentioned that sort of focus on the individual. I think one thing, and most of our courses, they're in person, and it's. We think, well, why not just get an AI machine to deliver my training, or play a video? Well, actually, you're not going to have that connection ever, and to be able to tailor it to an individual then, and to this individual's experiences, and maybe this person's got a particular question. He said, actually, making someone feel psychologically relaxed and able, I can do better and I can succeed. I think that's very important, and I think that's in some ways kind of the magic of training, if you like, and why we invest so much in in-person training, because you need that. I think one-to-one almost kind of approach, and that individualized, very bespoke. It's I'm going to make. It's not just here's a bunch of facts about business, see you next week and your profitability's doubled. I'm going to make you a success, and that's it's a focus on the individual. I think that's a very good message to have.
I think it is, and I think for me, what helps make training successful is setting that environment, and quite often, myself, my colleagues here at VFM will often say to delegates, on the first morning when delegates are sat there and you can see the room, you can see that people may be a little bit tense because they might not have had that conversation with their line manager as to why they're there. They might not have read the course brief. They might not know what to be expecting. So behind the ears, as I would say, there might be perhaps a little bit of worry, some mild anxiety. They may have had a bad experience on a course before. So we spend some time at the beginning to settle people down, and you can actually see the shoulders drop and people become more relaxed and connecting through the eyes. And I'm not sure that AI can do that just yet. Maybe one day, and perhaps when it does, then I may need to go and find another job. But hopefully I can carry this through to maybe retirement. But I also think, again, as trainers, I often use the analogy that as a trainer, I don't have any line authority over delegates. I can't make them do anything, and nor should I be able to. I tell the story certainly to delegates when I'm with them and serving them is very much that I have a room. The analogy, there's a room over here and there's a door. And what I'm going to do as a trainer, I'm going to open that door for you and I'm going to show you the contents of that room. Obviously, these are analogies.
Yes.
And in that room, there might be different things, but actually, if you actually stepped into that room and spent some time there, things might be very, very different. And what I'm going to do for the next day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever, or program even, actually, I'm going to show you the contents of this room. I'm going to let you, visualize it, touch those things, feel those things, imagine what it might like to be different. But ultimately, it's your choice whether you want to then enter into that room moving forwards.
Yeah.
And I think, the analogy I spent earlier about the line manager supporting is, when a person goes back to work, it's actually helping them perhaps spend some more time in that room.
Yes.
And hopefully that will become a little bit more easy for them over a period of time. And then one day, guess what? They look back and think, I can't remember what it was like not to live here because they've now fundamentally changed a habit, which is just thinking about something differently.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So training, what makes training successful? We started off today, it is fundamentally about change.
Yeah.
And change is fundamentally about helping somebody think about something differently to the point where that almost becomes, shall we say, non-conscious, subconscious. Yeah. The new habit.
And it's like, we looked at the competencies of the role, but actually, the person now hopefully has these competencies, and it becomes very easy, and sort of the role is more fulfilling for them, and delivers better results for the organisation as well.
Yeah, I think absolutely, and again, it is about helping people develop. We all have these voices in our heads, that tell us we can't do things and we shouldn't and we never will, and we compare ourselves to perhaps other people that might be not necessarily better than us. I don't think it's about better, but they might be more experienced. Yeah, and it's just encouraging people that actually, you can be more like that. But it is down to choice. Fundamentally, it's down to willpower and choice, and whether you've got perhaps the desire to actually want to do those things. To develop. Which that conversation with line management can really help.
Yeah. Peter, it's a huge topic, but we're running out of time. But thank you for being with us today. Any final thoughts you'd offer just on successful training, or phone VFM, phone Peter Joy?
phone VFM Associates. I think again, something that we do exceptionally well as an organisation is that we have perhaps 1 or 2 off-the-shelf courses, we would say. Every course that we deliver is tailored to the specific competences needed. We would qualify the need, the outcomes of the training. I would often say to a client, what would you like to be different? Yes. And that's the starting point for understanding their competencies. So for me, it's fundamentally, remember, in this world of busy management, this busy life, in success, well, sometimes we just need to slow down a little bit. What do we really want to be different, and what do we really need in place to help this person be successful?
Yeah. Peter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.